Hello and welcome to The Last Tackle. We're coming into week 6 of the Betfred Super League. 2 unbeaten sides as well. I'm delighted to be joined by Eorl Crabtree and Paul Sculthorpe. Gents, thanks for coming in. But we're going to start with some sad news. Bryn Hargreaves, he's been missing for over a year. His body was found in the USA this week, so some very, very sad news. Former prop of Wigan, St Helens, Lee and Bradford. Scully, you played with him and played against him.
Yeah, super sad news, isn't it, about Bryn? You know, a great lad. You know, one of my good teammates at St Helens. You know, it's been a mystery. You know what's happened over the last 12 months, and I know the rugby league community were well behind supporting the search for Bryn. You know, terrible ending. You know the way it has, and thoughts with his friends and family.
Certainly, our thoughts are with his family and friends. Let's turn our attention to last weekend's games. We're going to start with Castleford versus Leeds. Oh, good to see you. First win of the season for Cass. Much needed.
Yeah, much needed. I think you're exactly right there, and very disappointing that they were poor against us the week before. And to be honest, I was wondering myself where that win would come from. I didn't expect it against Leeds, and they showed up. They put in a really good performance, and Leeds also finding it tough at times throughout the early parts of the season already. But Castleford really showing up, and Andy Last's first win as well. So big smiles on faces there, and hopefully it's the start of things to come for them.
Andy Last, should he get the job?
I think he should. He's experienced enough. He's a great lad, Andy.
He wants it as well, doesn't he?
He does. He's made it clear, didn't he? He made it clear on Sky that he wants the job. You know, he's a real passionate coach, real knowledgeable coach, and it seems the Castleford players want to play for him. I thought that was the change in Castleford's performance last week against Leeds, was the enthusiasm, the energy levels, and the commitment certainly on defence.
No Cruz leaving for Leeds.
No,
it looks like he's going to be leaving the club.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the talk before the game was about, you know, Cruz leaving Leeds. Not a lot has been said about that. Obviously disruptional for Leeds, and you know he was captain last year for Leeds as well. So
when they got to the grand final.
Yeah, not ideal for their preparation, certainly in the current form that they're in as well.
Let's move on to Huddersfield. 4 points from 4. I mean, disappointing at home to Wigan.
Yeah, very disappointing. I think the overall performance, probably from both teams, I don't think was spectacular. Very physical. They're both very, very fit teams, and it came down to more mistakes than anything else. Bevan French being in the right place at the right time, especially on one of them, some smart play, but I think Huddersfield putting themselves under a lot of pressure. The difference this week is Jake Connors back in the team. A lot of expectation on him, a lot of pressure on his shoulders to a certain degree. But I agree with Ian Watson. I like a lot of what I'm seeing from Huddersfield. That's the same with Wigan. I just don't think they're quite firing on all cylinders, finding a way to get over the try line. Both teams scrappy at times. I think they'll both be up there at the end of the season, but I expect a little bit more.
Because in many respects, it was like the grand final, wasn't it? Because like the Challenge Cup final, you were leading 12-8.
Yeah, we were, and I thought we were the better team for vast parts of the game, but also Wigan being Wigan, they just do what they do. They find ways to win games, and we put ourselves under a lot of pressure. And like I say already, I think the team that we're putting out there at the moment is doing a good job. Some players are missing from the squad as well. Interesting to see that Wigan were literally 1 to 17 within the team, which is great, you know, to have those players on the field. We had a few missing ourselves, but either way, I don't think we were anywhere near where we want to be, and I don't think Wigan are where they want to be neither. A long way to go for both sides, and it's interesting to see. There's no worries for me, there's no concerns. I'm happy with how they're playing to a certain degree, but we need to start picking up wins against the big teams. It's all right beating the bottom ones, the ones near the bottom of Super League, but if you want a challenge, you need to be beating the big teams.
Scully, how do you see Huddersfield from the outside?
I think the big question for me is that them key positions, the fullback and the halfbacks. You know, you've got Jake Connor coming in, obviously Theo Farge, Ollie Russell, Tuilola here, and Will Price to fit in there as well. So I know the combinations are changing all the time. I think if Huddersfield are genuinely going to compete for Super League and Challenge Cup titles, I think they've got to get set in them positions and get that consistency week in, week out.
Let's talk St Helens. Crisis. lost the last two, and then managed to beat Hull. But seriously, I mean, a lot was made of the losing 2 games. Do you think it's because they needed to peak at the beginning of a season for that World Cup Challenge? And it's hard after that, because everyone else is not peaking at the beginning of a season, are they?
Your pre-season is very different. I remember it from when we played in 2001, when you've got to get up for a game, you know, at the beginning of February, a big game, you know, in a World Club Challenge that you want to win. But you taper your pre-season training and probably do a lot more football stuff around, you know, being right for that game. And, you know, there's talk, and you can forgive them for the games after. No, they beat Castleford. It wasn't a stellar performance, but then losses to Leeds and then Lee. But now that excuse can finish. That excuse of a hangover of World Cup, you know, needs to finish now. I was at the game on Friday, a good win against Hull FC. Not a good performance. And I mean, it was very much like Eorl said then
16-12 with 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, and like Eorl said about the Wigan Huddersfield game, neither team really played well, and I think that was the case at St Helens. But good to get the win, get the 2 points, and now build on that.
So from Saints' point of view, you needed that. Now just move on.
Yeah, they do. But I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned in these last probably 3 or 4 weeks. And the big one for me, and I know Wellow's made a point of it, is discipline. You know, we're losing players to sin bins, to sending offs, but then you're losing them for the next few weeks after. You know, Morgan Knowles is missing this week. The game has changed in regards to the rules and the concussion, the player welfare. Rightly or wrongly, you know, as fans, we want to see that physicality, but they're the rules that have been set and they're not going backwards. So players have got to learn to deal with it. And Saints have been dumb in certain areas in the last few weeks, and that has to stop.
We'll talk about Saints' next game, which is obviously Huddersfield, a little later in the show. But how do you view Saints from the outside then, Al?
From the outside, Saints are the best team that's ever been in Super League, in my opinion. I mean, you look back at the old sort of, for me personally, Bradford days and things like that, where they were a different team, and the game has changed, rightfully. So as Scully's pointed out already, the game has massively changed, but they had to get themselves up to go to Australia to win the biggest game that this country needed as well, by the way. I think it was absolutely huge what Saints did for the national sport here, as in our national sport, as in Rugby League, our beautiful game, which we need to progress and need to grow. Saints needed to win that for me massively, so they had to get themselves up for that. And then it's quite difficult then to go into the next few rounds of back into Super League. It's a step back down to reality almost. And the teams like Lee, who are always going to get themselves up for a game against St Helens as their arch rivals, and they see that as their opportunity to get that scalp, it's going to be difficult. They're going to be tested, but it's a long season. Saints have been doing this for the last 5-6 years. You know, they'll a couple of games throughout the season, they will have an off day. They'll rest players. It won't go their way. But it doesn't matter. Saints are the best team, and they are for a reason. They'll get themselves back into a position to really challenge at the end of the season.
I think you look back, you know, at that game against Penrith, and that was an outstanding performance from St Helens.
Especially,
you don't become a bad team overnight.
Especially going level as well. The heads could have dropped.
They'll take so much out of that game, you know, throughout the year, and the quality performance that they put in. As I say, the defeats on the back of that is not because all of a sudden they've become a poor side. There's different factors, but now it's time to get back on that horse.
Paul Welling's learning curve must be massive the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he signed up for the job, didn't he? We all know Wellows is more than capable of that job, and you know, as you said, there's certain factors beyond, you know, that World Club Challenge game, but now, you know, it's about the next game, and no bigger game, you know, than Huddersfield away. You know, Huddersfield, a lot of people fancying for silverware this year. So I think this is probably Saints' biggest challenge of the year so far in Super League.
Well, Paul Wellings in his first season as head coach. Darryl Powell, well established as a head coach. 5 out of 5 for Warrington now. Yeah. Well, let's be honest, there was question marks going into this season for Warrington, wasn't there? People were saying if it didn't make a good start, whatever. That's 5 out of 5 for Warrington.
Yeah, it's funny to see the transition that they've made, the players that have come and gone, and obviously Daryl Parlow's question marks about him and also the relationship with some of the players as well. It seemed a little bit toxic at times, but those players have gone, and the players that have come in, such as Vaughan, who's an absolute freak of a player, they've really added towards the squad, but what they've got now is that size, they've got that power, and we saw it in the first game again at Huddersfield, where they just walked over the top of us. They got challenged a little bit against Hull KR at times, but they got themselves back into the game, went on to win that one as well. But they look the real deal this year, and they're also playing with confidence. They're playing very well, but the squad in depth, I think, is absolutely fantastic. I see the changes that have been made, and it has been coming. It's just taken a little bit of belief in the squad that they're putting together in Daryl Powell.
Massive contrast to last season.
It is a massive contrast, and I think the thing with Warrington at the moment, 5 from 5, they are playing with confidence. I think, some of the big players are standing up and performing. I think Drinkwater's been massive for George Williams. We know George is their key figure. George Williams plays well, usually Warrington plays well.
Well, he's brought his England form into his
season.
He has,
and you know what? We said the other day, we had a coaches meeting on Monday with England, and one of the lads said that England have done a massive favour for Warrington in getting George Williams back into the form that we know George Williams can play at, and he's took that into the start of the year with Warrington, and I think that alongside Drinkwater, who can steer the ship, can steer the team around the park, can take control of that kicking game, and just let George play. George is strong when he's running, and he's doing that with confidence at the moment.
I know, mentioned him. How good is Paul Vaughan?
He's outstanding, isn't he? I think what he gives, but the time that he gives as well on a field, he's got great leg speed. You can see he's a very, very fit guy. The number of carries he does, the number of tackles he makes, but he can play 60, 70 minutes, no problem. And he's been an outstanding signing for Warrington.
I think Darrell Clark as well stepping up. He seems to have just got a new lease of life again, and I think that pack getting forward is making a massive difference to the team.
It's making a massive difference for both Clarkey and for Danny Walker as well. I mentioned that in the Leeds game, the opening game of the season. What a difference for a 9 playing on the back of a dominant pack. And Vaughan has led that pack, and the two 9s are benefiting on the back of that.
Talking about unbeaten sides, Catalan Dragons are quietly getting on with it, 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
And obviously, grand final a couple of years ago, injured players, but 5 out of 5. And Tom Johnston, another hat-trick, looks a great signing.
Yeah, he's one of those signs we all know he's an athlete, an absolute athlete. He's a sprinter, isn't he? The way he just runs, he's got great form, but as soon as he gets in space, nobody catches him. And he is pouncing on those sort of balls, those loose balls at the moment, some really good finishes in the corners as well. His issue in the past has been purely injuries. And if he can keep him fit, then he'll be absolutely fantastic for you throughout the season. He'll score a ton of tries. But Catalan, for me, are grinding it out a little bit. They're working very hard. They've always been a physical team, always hard to go to. But now they seem a little bit more disciplined. They seem to be working well together. I still don't think they're 100% right where they need to be at the moment. I think they're picking up some really good wins. I see some frailties at times, those little mistakes, but they're finding a way to win, and it's really impressive so far. 5 from 5, you can't argue with that.
Yeah, no, I think that they've got some key players missing as well, and no more so than Sam Tompkins, who's pretty much led that team for the last 5-10 years, and they've got some outstanding players, and again another team that's playing with confidence. Funny, I seen a quote from Steve Mack this week, and he was disappointed with the performance against Hull KR, but when you can play poorly in their eyes and still win, and certainly a team like Hull KR, who are a tough team this year. I think it's a sign of a good side.
And finally, on Sunday, Salford, that's 3 wins now, only just against Wakefield. Wakefield's first try in 4 games as well. It went to Golden Point. I think Salford are going to surprise a few again this year. Yes,
yeah, they are. They're a great team to watch, Salford. Certainly on attack. You look at Croft, Braley, Sneed, that combination. They're going to move the football about, and that man Mark Sneed again. How many clinches has he come up with? That last kicked 2 drop goals in the game. Obviously one in Golden Point to win them the game. But Salford, I think they're another team that's grown in confidence. They've signed a lot of players up on contract. They're getting that stability. And for me, they've got one of the best young props in the game in Tyler Dupree. I think he's been outstanding this year.
3 wins for Salford now.
Yeah, very impressive. I think the half-backs for me, I think that combination of Croft, obviously that elusiveness that he's got there, Brealey with his pace as well, and Sneyd with that composure, the smartness that he's got. I think it's a really good blend of team that they've got. They work really well together. And I think when they are on fire, someone like Brealey, for instance, who's really struggled at times to cement his place in a Super League team, now looks like a world beater again. He's got pace to burn, scoring tries for fun. But the biggest thing is playing with a smile on his face, which is great to see.
Well, that was last week. Let's look ahead, because it may only be March, but it's all about the race to Old Trafford in October.
And a Super League season comes to its conclusion here tonight. It is 4 in a row.
Well, Scully said it early on, it's all about the end of season, isn't it? That's when you want to be peaking, and it's all about the grand final in October. But we're building up to another final, the Challenge Cup at Wembley in August here in the Sportsman. We've got another game for you, a week on Sunday, the 2nd of April. It's the 4th round. We've got the Dewsbury Rams versus the Widnes Vikings. Live and free on the Sportsman, a week on Sunday, and that is the Betfred Challenge Cup. And it doesn't matter what round we're in, Scully, something a bit special about the Challenge Cup.
There is, you know, it's what our game's grown up on, it's what we've all grown up on, you know, watching, you know, Challenge Cup. But I just think even more so now with obviously with the Sportsman and, you know, all the online streaming platforms covering the games at a lower level in the lower rounds, you know, seeing the amateur players, you know, mix it with the professional boys. And then
I watched the Wigan amateur derby the other week. It was brilliant.
I mean, it's brilliant, isn't it? That's a great thing about our game, and to be able to see that on a live platform now has been brilliant. But you know, Challenge Cup is a very, very prestigious, you know, competition for players to play in. You know, I've had the pleasure of playing in Challenge Cup finals and winning them, and as I say, that's what we've all grown up with. And
obviously Huddersfield was so close last year, Earl.
Yeah, a minute away from winning the Challenge Cup final, and I was there obviously spectating, and I've been lucky to play in a couple of Challenge Cup finals myself, unfortunately on the losing end, so I know how that feels, but I honestly believe we're going into a few minutes left of that game. I forgot how much I had the passion for it, and it took me back a little bit, knowing that, you know, this was the moment that we could win, and it was taken away at the last possible minute. It was awful, but yeah, the Challenge Cup for me is our identity as a sport.
So a week on Sunday, Dewsbury Rams versus Widnes Vikings. And keep your eyes peeled to our social media for some more live games coming up.
You're watching the Sportsman Rugby League, the home of Betfred Super League Online.
Tune in to Last Tackle every Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
Right, let's turn our attention to the games this week, and there is a reason you two are on. It's the game of the week. It's Huddersfield versus St Helens, live on Sky. Jake Connor in the squad, like we mentioned. Right, then we'll let the home team go first then. Come on then, what's going to happen on Thursday night?
Is this my pitch, right?
This is your pitch, yeah, this, for Thursday night.
Yeah, I think this one for us is the one that we need to win. I think Saints have been a little bit rocky so far. I know how good they are, I know the calibre of team that they are, but Huddersfield need to start firing at some point, and I think this could be the game. Jake Connor coming back into the team as well. Is this the moment that we click? I think it will be. I need it to be. I will be there looking after sponsors, so they need to do something a little bit special. But for me, the Giants, it's got to be.
What kind of game are we going to get then, Scully? That's not a bad pitch from Earl. I bet you can do better.
I think we're gonna get a great game. As I say, it's two of the most fancied teams in Super League. For me, Saints are still the best team in Super League, and you know, I think this is a game where they've got to get back to the standards that they used to. You know, they've had a couple of blips in the past couple of weeks, but I think it's occasions like this that bring out the best in St Helens, and I expect a good performance this week.
Have Huddersfield been a bit too conservative so far this season, you think?
I wouldn't say conservative. I think that's the style of play that they play. The game has changed so much, and I think it is very much down to discipline, kicking to corners, being the fittest team. We've talked about the sort of like the level of fitness of a lot of the teams. Huddersfield are one of these really disciplined sides. That's what they focus on, not making errors. Unfortunately, we have made errors, and we haven't found a way over the line. They are conservative in the style of play, as you might call it, in that sense. But when you've got your attacking threats in the side, things can change. So hopefully, this is the moment to do that.
Prediction?
Well, obviously, Huddersfield are going to win. Sorry, but I think it's going to close. I want, we jest a little bit here, but
it's pointless asking him.
Yeah, I mean, he's slightly biased as well, I think. But Huddersfield, I do think it's going to be close, but I'm maybe 1 or 2 tries within it. But Huddersfield all the way.
Yeah, I think it's funny you talk about Huddersfield being conservative with the ball, with some of the mavericks that they have in that side, and I think sometimes that's their positive thing, and I think sometimes it can be a negative. And I seen one thing in the Wigan game. They were losing to Wigan 8-4, and they took a penalty to go 8-6. Where that for me is not the sign of a confident side that you're going to score points. So I think with Saints will be on the money on defence this week, and I think Huddersfield have got the work cut out to post points. So I'm going to go for a Saints win.
No surprise there. Friday night, live on Sky, Wigan versus Salford. I think this is a fascinating game.
Yeah, I do actually. And Wigan, not brilliant against Huddersfield. I know we're a tough outfit ourselves. But Salford, for me, we talk about them being a surprise every year, but it's every year they keep surprising. So is it really a surprise when you find themselves in these games? I love the discipline that they've got. I love the shape that they throw at the opposition. I really like them as a squad. So I think it's going to be a very good game. To be honest with you, when I look at these games, I think every one of them is going to be close. I don't see where there's blowouts anymore, which is really good to see. Anyone can beat anyone. I think the game is getting a little bit tighter, and it's exciting to see. But Salford, I mean, if we're going to make predictions,
yeah, you need to make a prediction.
Wigan, obviously it's going to be tough against Wigan, but I like to be a little bit different now and again. I'm taking Salford in this one.
Well, they knocked him out in the semi-final, didn't they, to get to the grand final a couple of years ago. So Earl's going for Salford, Wigan, Salford.
Yeah, I think Wigan they're not firing on attack. I think there's a bit of disconnection there with the halves and those that control the game. I think what Wigan always pride themselves on though is their defence, whereas Salford, their thing is we'll outscore more than you. Obviously, we've talked about some of the quality, your Crofts running game. Your Briley's running game, Mark Sneed's organisation, kicking game, they'll want to score points. So I think it's going to be a defensive team against an attacking side, but I'm going to go with the home advantage, and I'm going to say Wigan are going to respond to a disappointing win against Huddersfield.
Couple more games to talk about on Friday night. Castleford versus Warrington. Cass will be looking to follow up their first win of the season.
And you found a bit of confidence, I think, as well. That's
Which
just
I
what
think
they
Andy
needed.
Last has brought to him, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen how they are playing a little bit better as well. The combinations are working. Greg Eden stepping back into the line, and Paul McShane, when he's in the team, he makes a massive difference to them. I'm not sure it'll be enough, though, against Warrington. They're 5 from 5 for a reason. They look really, really strong, very physical. I think Castleford will have another improved performance, but I think Warrington for me.
I think physically, Warrington are too good for Cass. I think looking at the teams, the physicality, the speed, and it's how much that Leeds win took out of Cass as well. It was great to see the change in mentality from that Castleford team, certainly the effort on defence, but can they back it up this week? I don't think they can against Warrington.
And the final game on Friday night, Wakefield versus Hull KR. Right, if Wakefield are going to get that important first win, this is a great chance this week.
Yes, it is. Back at home, obviously. And they'll take a lot of positives out of that game against Salford. It was only a 1 point golden point loss. I think Mason Leno's key for them. He directs that team around. Good kicking game. And scores quite a lot of the points for Wakefield. So he's key. There's some games they've had a couple of blowout losses, but some games have been really tight. And I think they'll take a lot of positive. I hope my good mate Mark Applegarth. I hope he gets his first win of the season this week, but it won't be easy against Hull KR. I've got some quality players.
Straight off the bat, I'm thinking Wakefield at home. I'm taking them. I think it's a good opportunity for them. This is one of those games where we talk about getting up for a game. This is the one that they need to get themselves up for. Unlucky last week, a cruel way to lose a game against Salford there, but I think on this occasion, this could be the first win in the season. Hull KR should beat them, could beat them. I believe they could, but I think Wakefield are really going to step up.
2 games on Saturday, Leeds versus Catalans, an early kick-off. Looking forward to this. Catalans obviously undefeated, winning 5.
Yeah, Catalans obviously go into it on 5 from 5, on good form and confident. Leeds completely the opposite. There was a lot of talk about Leeds prior to this year. I didn't see it, I'll be honest. I didn't see enough changes in that squad to the Leeds side. I know they made the grand final last year, but let's be honest, a couple of months prior to that, they were sat 11th in Super League. And I've not seen enough, and certainly enough in the halfbacks of Blake Austin and Aidan Caesar.
Keep thinking they're going to click, don't we?
Keep thinking they're going to click. Everyone keeps saying they're going to click, but they're not clicking. And they need a massive turnaround in performance.
Yeah, I think Catalan, for me, too physical. I think Leeds are probably a little bit lighter weight than they have been previously as well. That halfback combination, great individual players. I think they're too similar in my eyes. I don't think I don't think they complement each other quite as well as other teams do. Great individuals, and when things start breaking down the middle of the field, that's when they're coming to their own, off the cuff type of rugby league. I just think Catalan will be too disciplined, too strong, too physical. Leeds can do it though. They have the players to score points, score tries, but Catalan for me.
And finally, Hull versus Lee. And Hull pushed Saints all the way last week.
They did. It was a close game, but not a good performance. And you think they're coming into that game on the back of a good iron at Salford. Whereas Lee, they're playing with confidence at the moment. A couple of good wins, and obviously, give Warrington a game, certainly a second half, fight back. And I think Lee are playing with a lot of confidence, and they'll see this as a game that they can win.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying now with Lee yet again. I think they are that team. They see themselves as underdogs, I think, in many ways. So any win that they get is not so much a bonus, but they feel like they're putting it against everybody else and it's showing everybody how good they are. They play with that sort of smile on their face, that enthusiasm, that intensity as well. But I think Hull, they've got the quality, they've got the players, physicality at times. They just slip off too much, but I think this will be a Hull win for me.
I think we spoke, didn't we, to Tony Smith at the beginning of the year, and he said, a difference in culture, what he's seen from Hull FC this year. You look at the players on paper, and they shouldn't be anywhere near some of these results that they're getting at the moment. I think
But we've been saying that
Clifford
for
and
the
Hoy
last 2 or 3 years, haven't we?
are clearly two good signings, two good players, but they're not converting this as a team into performances and wins, and something needs to change.
Well, gents, I've enjoyed your company. So the big game this week is definitely Huddersfield versus St Helens on Thursday night live on Sky. Next week, we've got a very special programme. We're at the launch of the Betfred Women's Super League. See you next week.